is up, our little honeydews? And welcome to Sippin N B, where the drinks are icy and the book talk is totally family friendly, not traumatic at all. We're fine. And spicy.
So it's a lie to the listeners. Just for the record.
We are on episode 9, part 13. And we're your main bitches. I'm Sam.
I'm Steph. Yay, episode 13. Woohoo! This is the last episode we are recording before our week extravaganza of each other.
By the time you're listening to this, we're back into press, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That part where we're focusing on the highs, not the lows.
So excited!
She's dancing. Why is she dancing? She still has to get through like 5 more days.
Shut up.
And a whole flight.
It's our last day of recording. I'm doing the laundry that I've been doing for 3 days. I'm excited. Yes. We're on the chapters I've been waiting for forever. Let me be excited.
Let me tell you, the notes are a lot shorter, which lends itself more to like the fact that we're finally getting things that we've probably been talking about that has led us to these 13 parts to begin with. So this is great. We're doing great. This string is annoying. As always, I'm going to start with the notes of the reader, and then we'll dive right in with chapter 52. Buckle in. This book contains themes and/or discussions that some readers may find difficult to read. While there are no graphic scenes, there is mention of sexual assault, suicide, the death of children, and discussions of verbal, psychological, and physical abuse. If you need to talk with someone about your experiences, there are people waiting to help, and the resources will be in the description down below. You would think I would remember this, like I would have it memorized by now, but there's something more powerful when I hold it in the palm of my hands. I'm waving it furiously at the camera. If you're not watching on YouTube, then you're really missing out on some prime content.
Our faces mostly.
Chapter 52. So at the end of chapter 51, literally ends with her saying I'm pregnant to Ash because it's all confirmed. Wow. Yay. It took us 10,000 years to this point.
About fucking time. Let's go.
So chapter 52. Very first little paragraph says, the confession hung heavily in the air between us with a tangible weight that felt like it could collapse the walls of the pool. I waited for a reaction, but Ash, well, he had absolutely none. Mind you, I imagine like a stone. Like he's turning into like
Edward
a stone.
Cullen.
Oh.
That's what I thought reading this just now. It's like, oh, it's like Edward, and she's like, can vampires have panic attacks? Go into shock? Like,
oh.
Listen, you said stone, it solidified that thought, so.
I understand. I was like, okay, not responding is not a great response. Worrying is also not a great response. And then so she repeats herself, and she's like, I'm pregnant, you say I've been nauseous, and she's spiraling down this whole thing of like, what's been happening? And all he goes is, pregnant? Like, question mark, question mark, question mark. And I'm like, sir. And then Sarah's like, yes. And she's like, I know this is a surprise. I was shocked too. We haven't even discussed if you want children, blah, 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 blah. Then she gets to this whole thing, and then she apologizes. And Ash is like, don't apologize. But yet he is still very, very, very surprised, which, I mean, I get it. I'm assuming while he's trying to prepare for war, that's not the top of his mind. Honestly, I guess it wasn't hers either. And he was like, he is putting the pieces together now. He's just like, oh, so when you were anxious, this is why you were anxious. And she was like, yeah, I got sick. And he's like, well, why didn't you mention it? And she was like, I thought it was the ascension or something else. And then he's like, I don't understand. And she's been unwell for weeks. And she was like, yeah, I was actually nauseous while I was in Delos, but I just thought it was Deos, whatever. I just thought it was all because of that. And he's like, wait, you just recently became not mortal, like, hey? And she's like, yeah, see, I thought that too, but XYZ thing, and I already ixnayed that theory. And then he's like, okay, well, Eos should have been able to see how far along you were. And she's like, she did. She thinks I'm about 3 months along. And then she tells him
I like how he doesn't say he should be able to see how far along you are. He said, how far along are we?
Yeah, he's
Like,
still not processing. He
he's
still hasn't
no,
said
that's a
anything.
good sign, though. That's a good thing. Go continue.
Anyway,
Ugh.
and then she remembers her Noda dream, and then she says, "Oh yeah, she didn't even tell him how many kids they were having." Then she goes into her Noda dream, and now she saw 2 cubs on the bank of my lake, and then he's like, "2?" I swear this man is probably having a panic attack.
Yes.
And she was
Good thing
like,
she
"You
can't feel
sure?"
emotions.
She's like, "You sure you don't want to get out of the pool?" And she
He
was
just
like,
is
"Yeah."
2?
2, Aos also confirmed that, and I know this is overwhelming and will likely sound a little insane, but I think, no, I know. I love them already. I don't know how. I've never wanted children or honestly even liked being around them. Fuck, I really didn't think about it, but I'm not getting rid of them because they're ours. They're mine. And
Aw.
he's still in shock. And he she's like, "What are you feeling? What are you thinking?" And he's like, "I'm shocked as fuck. I don't know what to think. With everything that has happened, I didn't want children, didn't want to expose them to what I experienced, so I never really thought about the idea beyond that." And then he says, "But
Oh
I
boy.
could have lost you. I could have lost them." And his voice cracked, and he sounded absolutely destroyed thinking of the possibility. And then finally, this man goes, "I'm going to be," and doesn't finish his sentence. And she's like, "Are you crying?" And he's like, "I think so." Dude, if there's water coming out of your eyes or whatever. And he's like,
Or
"I'm gonna be a
whatever.
father." And she's like, "Yes." And then she's like, "Does this mean you're happy about this?" Um, because he lifted her up into a hug, and he's like, "Sarah, I don't think I've ever wanted anything more. And honestly,
Love it.
start with that, then process."
Listen, like, I get it. But she's had time to think about it and process it. He just got jumped with this information, like
It's like 20 minutes. She's had 20 minutes to process this. Maybe an hour. Maybe an hour. Come on.
oh, it's
And
different, man.
then
It's
she
different.
starts crying, and he's like, "Please don't cry. It kills me when you do." And she's like, "I don't mean to cry. I think this is why I'm so emotional." Stupid hormones.
Yes.
Retweet. And she's like, "If you were unhappy," and he was like, "How could I ever be unhappy? You're having my child, my children. This is a dream I never allowed myself to have. You said you already love them." And she's like, "I do, and that scares me. And then I'm even more scared because I'm scared. Does that makes me sound bizarre, doesn't it?" And he's like, "No, Liesa, it doesn't. I am scared too. Neither of us planned for this, and our lives are about to change in ways I cannot even begin to imagine, but I know that we will love them just as fiercely as we love each other. And I also know we'll figure everything out. We've got this." What a supportive man. And
Ugh,
then
I love this.
super excited. He's like, "We're going to be parents," and she's like, "I love you so much, Ash." And then I'm gonna skip around. They made babies, so then they, you know, make more babies, hypothetically, theoretically, in the sense of the act. Anyway, and then he makes this comment about like them feeling different. It's like, I mean, I like to equate it just like when you go over a milestone or hit a milestone with somebody. Like, it doesn't have to be a romantic partner, but it's just like you feel like some new level of respect, new level of like you're supporting them. I mean, I'm
Right.
sure some of this was like sexual, intention, but like it wasn't all that. It was like they're bringing in life into the world, and they're, doing the whole damn thing. And then okay, gotta skip over the sex. Then they finish the sex, and I wanted to read this part, but they're like done, and she said silence fell, or her thoughts or whatever said, "Silence fell between us, and he dragged his hand up under my hair in slow, soothing strokes. I couldn't help but think of all we'd had to overcome to get to this moment, and the lives growing inside me. They felt like a testament to our love, a miracle."
I love that.
Me too. And then, so a little time later, they're laying in bed and, more baby making. And then she asks him if he needs to feed. And he's like, "No, I fed from rain earlier." And he's like, "I don't even know if you should be feeding right now." And the Vendentia didn't tell her anything. So
Well, she didn't
they
know
decided.
if he should be feeding from her.
Yeah, is that not what I said?
And you said she should be feeding.
Feeding him. Sorry, feeding him her blood. In my brain, that's
Gotcha.
where my mind
Gotcha.
went.
No, I
And
gotcha.
then they bring up having to have Kai the healer come. And then I was like, well, you did ascend Penelope and like everything was all Gucci bandana. Maybe it wasn't. So they agreed to have the healer come.
Gucci
And
bandana.
then she makes a comment about how her bruises weren't healing and stuff like that. And she's like, she makes a comment about there were bruises almost everywhere after fighting Colas, but she didn't have any on her lower stomach. And she was like, it was almost like the essence was protecting that area. Them. That sounds kind of ridiculous. And he goes, I don't think it does. The essence is an extension of your will, perhaps even on a subconscious level. And all I can
Charmed
think of is
man.
Piper. Yeah. Piper having
I knew you were gonna go there.
Wyatt. And, well, yeah. So,
Yep.
here we are. And he needs to eat, she needs to eat. And then Sarah thinks about like if shifting into her Noda will affect them. And she goes, I assume not since it hasn't yet, but instinct tells me no. And he says, you're so worried. And she's like, me? Never. And they're essentially going to ask Kai all of these things.
As
and
new
then
parents do.
correct. And Ash kind of finally, processes that he's having twins. And he's like, for some reason, it just hit me that we will have twins. I know, I should have figured that out hours ago. She said, don't feel bad. I actually hadn't considered that either, to be honest. Twins do run in the family. So then they're having a whole twin conversation. And then, they also equate to, like, they also think about the prophecy, how, about the first and second daughters. And she's just like, hate to break it to you, bud, but we ain't having daughters. Hate to break it to you. And she's like, I can't confirm whatever, but it's just a feeling. And Ash goes, either way, they will want for nothing. And she's like, you're right. And then Ash smiled at her and said, I was thinking that other than telling Nectus, we probably should keep quiet of the news. This isn't information we want to get out. And she's like, agreed. Eos won't say anything unless I tell her. And then he's grateful and is cute. And then
Belle's gonna be so mad to know that Eos knew for so long. It's gonna be
Does she get mad?
I don't think so, because we never find out everyone finding out. But I just know Belle. Like, she'll be like, you knew!
Interesting. And then we get into chapter 53. Oh.
Dun dun
dun. Eos goes to see Sarah because Nyctos told her that she wanted to see her. And Eos is like, you've made your choice. And Sarah goes, we've made our choice. We're going to do the parent thing. And she's like, I knew it. I'm so happy for you. And then she's just like, how did you know? And Eos says how Nyctos sent Rain to summon Kai. He told Rain he wanted Kai to check you over to ensure you were healing, but you knew better. And it's been a long time since a primal had a baby, so everybody and their mother is excited. And
Probably
she's like,
freaking
how
out,
did he take the news? And she's like, I think he almost passed out. And Eos giggled and says, Fates, I would have given anything to see that. It was something else, but other than that, he was perfect. He was actually really excited. And Eos asks if they talked about how this doesn't affect things. And she said, we talked about feeding and stuff. That's something we have to ask Kai, but we haven't gotten to the part where I tell him that I won't be backing down from anything yet. And Eos is like, how do you think he'll respond? And she said, I understand why he won't likely agree with me fighting. I get it, but if something happened to him and I wasn't there, I can't even think about it. Anyway, I know he'll be an amazing father. And Eos adds, and I believe you'll make an incredible mother.
Aww.
Oh.
She's
Anyway.
probably thinking yes, because I've had great examples of mothers.
Rip. Anyway, then Sarah's like, I don't really have any idea of what will happen when Kai's here. Like, she's not exactly sure like how like an examination works. So Eos kind of walks her through it. And then
the part that makes us cry.
She's talking to Eos, and then Eos leaves. And the moment the Draken walked in from the balcony and our arms met, I knew Ash had told him. It was the softness in his features and gaze. I stopped halfway to the raised platform, a knot of emotion lodging in my throat. In less than a breath, Nectus held me in his arms and lifted my bare feet off the floor. The hug surprised me, but I got over it quickly, throwing my arms around his neck. He smelled of wind and earth.
I feel like next to Nyctos, Nectus finding out is like the biggest, like, I want Nectus to know kind of thing. Like,
The
I
funny part
love
is I think I really like Nyctos. Yeah, great. Nectus,
Nectus,
dude.
yeah.
Being able to like, cause he's like the third party who like sees them from,
Can you imagine how Delana would be if Poppy got pregnant? Like,
It's when. What?
when?
Jennifer, don't do us like that. Don't do us like that.
Excuse me,
When?
you're the one that's like, when did they go to Grand or go to Arcadia at the end of this book? Like,
Oh, I still think that that's a high probability, but that's
shut your
besides the
mouth.
point.
Continue.
The epilogue will be like 1,000 years,
Ugh.
thousand years in the
Oh,
future.
my heart already can't handle it.
Anyway, he says, Sarah, she says, crazy, huh? And he's like, I thought I scented something from you before, but wasn't sure what it was. And she's like, when you smelled death on me? And he was like, no, as I told you before, that was when I smelled ash on you. And then he says, it was when you returned from the riders and we were on the balcony, your scent had changed. Bruh, do you know how long ago that was? Do you know how long ago that was, Nectus?
At least 52 chapters ago.
Correct. He says your scent was richer and more of a mix of you and Ash than it was before. It had been so long since I've been around a primal who was with child that it didn't even cross my mind.
Ugh.
And she was like, how was he when he told you? And he said, eager. As soon as we were alone, he blurted it out. I wasn't sure I had heard him correctly at first. And Sarah says, were you as still as a statue? Because he was when I told him. And Nectus says, I'm sure I was. What I saw in his eyes today, I've never seen before. It's hard to put into words, but it was like seeing a man who suddenly realizes they have earned everything they could ever ask for.
That makes me want to cry.
Yeah,
It's
Sarah
so
too.
sweet.
And Nexus is like, it's okay if you cry. And she's like, no, it's not. And then Nexus asks if they're still on for today, and she's like, well, why wouldn't we be? And he asks her, how are you handling the news? She's like, alternating between really happy, terrified, and excited, while wondering what in the world I did to deserve this. And Nexus is like, I can name several reasons why you deserve this. And she says, and I can name one really big reason that nullifies all of those reasons. And then Sarah, this is a whole big thing of Sarah feeling undeserving for this whole family that she is about to birth.
Yeah.
She says, I keep asking myself how this is possible after the lives I took. How did I end up carrying life inside me? And Nexus is like, that's not how any of this works. And she says, I know. What I mean is that there seems to be no balance in this. And yeah, I get that I conceived before I lost control, but I keep thinking it's not fair. It would have made sense if fate had made me barren, or if it took them from me after what I did. And then Nectus says, Helena felt similar when she first learned she was pregnant with our daughter. There used to be far more fighting among the Draken, especially after Ethos was killed. We wanted justice but sought vengeance. My mate was extraordinarily kind and generous, if she liked you. But she was also as vicious as she was kind. When provoked, she was feared as much as I am, possibly even more. Could you imagine a female Nectus?
I was about to say, I was like, this sounds like someone who would be with Nectus. Like, I love getting the more background on her. It just like, but also makes me sad for Nectus and Jadis.
And then he lives his whole life, and then we get into, I don't want to think about it right now.
There's Aurelia. It's not the same, I know.
Not the same. Yeah, possibly even more so because when she let loose on somebody, she didn't hold back. Sound like anyone we know? That's what Nectus said, not me. I just want to let everyone know that. After Ethos was killed, Helena single-handedly took out most of the Draken that served Investus' court and wiped out the entirety of Hanan's. Like I said, she could be vicious, fiercely so. It was one of the reasons I loved her. Oh, we love you too. I mean her too. You may also know a part of this story. It involves Reaver's parents. They were killed when Ash didn't respond to Colus's summons in a timely manner. Colus sent several of his Draken. We lost Reaver's parents and 2 more in the battle, but Colus lost twice that. His actions caused him to have fewer Draken in his court than Ash. We learned that Colus was considering taking Reaver, demanding that Ash sever the bond with the youngling. Colus felt as if he was owed. When Helena learned about it, she was enraged. Reaver had become a son to us. We knew what happened. Okay, so they're like brother and sister, which we kind of already knew, but I guess this just solidified it in my mind. We knew what happened to the younglings in Colus's court. They never survived past their first full shift or adolescence. Neither Ash nor we would allow that to happen. Relations were tense in the years that followed. At that time, Colus had 3 fully grown female Draken. He sent them, likely believing they would be safe, along with Devon and 2 others. They were there to take Reaver, and it did not end well. In a way, we were sending a message back to Colus, that he wasn't just fucking with his nephew, he was now fucking with us. He used the female Draken almost like a shield. He did, and he was wrong for doing so. None of us cared who or what they were, not when it came to Reaver. Helena took out 2 of the females. The third was Devon's mate and the youngest of the Colus's Draken. Was Talia? Talia is how I'm going to pronounce that, but I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. Devon created a path for her escape. My mate wasn't having that. Helena went after her, catching up while they were over the last to sea. If Helena had time to cool down, if there weren't years of pain and loss at the hands of Colus, she likely wouldn't have done what she did. She ripped Talia's throat out over the sea, sending her into a watery grave along with the child she carried within her. We knew the moment Talia showed that she was pregnant. We could smell it. We couldn't believe Colus sent her or that Devon allowed it, but then again, Devon, as much as he was a fucker, could do nothing but obey Colus's orders. Once Helena returned and calmed, she was horrified by what she had done. Less than a year later, we learned she was with child. What she did to Talia and her unborn youngling haunted her, stayed with her up until her death. The many nights that I held her as our child grew inside of her, and even after, telling her that she was worthy of our gift, were innumerable. And Sarah asks if she ever came to believe that, and Necta says Helena learned to separate the two. It wasn't easy, but she did come to realize that she had done nothing to do with our child. And I'm so damn grateful she did, because she was able to enjoy what time she had with her daughter, and because of that, it allowed me to do the same, to remain who I was even after I lost her. And then they have a whole, is that why Devon's an asshole? And Necta says Helena never stopped thinking about what she did. I'm sure it lessened as time passed, but it was with her every day. She still hungered for life and joy, and in the short time she had with Jadis, she was an amazing mother, just as you will be, Sarah. You will be as fierce and protective as she was. It doesn't matter what you've gone through in your past, nor does anything you have done to others or yourself. You will do just as my Helena did. You will ensure you will be a good mother because you have control over that, because you will love them that fiercely. And you will both have Ash and me to make sure you never forget that. Uncle Necky. I don't know if it's Grandpa Necky. Uncle Necky. I don't know.
I think it's just gonna be Necky, but who knows?
Who really knows? And then Kai shows up. Well, this is a little time has passed, I'm assuming. Kai the healer shows up, and he's nervous as shit.
How can you not be with Ash doing what he's doing?
True. Some of it was because he was handling the well-being of the true primal of life and the health of the children of the primal of death, but that wasn't the only reason. Every fucking time Kai's trying to do his examination, Ash is sitting there growling in the background. And Kai's outlining everything that he's doing, checking the position of the uterus. And Sarah's just like, Nick, just knock it the fuck off. And Kai says, I've read that when a primal is expecting, it can stir their noda and cause a primal response. To a healer simply trying to do an exam to ensure that everything is fine? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And Kai says to anyone or anything that could even be remotely perceived as a threat, especially other males. The Draken are the same, as are the Serene. It is, one would say, a primitive instinct that is difficult to control. And Sarah's just like, Ash can go to the balcony. I don't need any of this shit right now.
Right.
So he does the initial exam, and he says, from what I can tell, everything is fine. Your heart rate and blood pressure is normal. And so now he lays out, like, what to expect. It's been over 2 centuries since a primal has been with a child, and unfortunately, any who may have cared for your mother, Nyctos, are no longer with us. What I know is from notes found while serving in Cytheria, and from what I found in the city in Anthemium. Some place that starts with an A. I believe there's more to be found at Mount Lotho. I would like to go there as soon as possible. And Sarah's hesitant, and she's just like, I'm not sure if that's wise. But Ash is like, nah, you go. You do what you gotta do. We'll send some peeps and protect your ass. Even though I was just snarling at you, I'm gonna protect you.
I'm also gonna make sure you have to go there because I need that info.
Yeah. So, essentially, Kai says that the first 2 semesters are more or less the same. Their trimesters. Listen, the show I just watched is still, I'm still trying to figure out the point of the show. And they were in college in a flashback. Anyway, trimesters. The first two are similar to the mortal realm. It's the third trimester when things start to get tricky. And as the babies grow in size, they take more nutrition and blood from the mother as well as ether. In fact, the essence will serve the needs of the babe first before the mother. That starts at conception, but will become more so as the pregnancy progresses. And which is the reason why her bruises aren't healing completely. With you having two to take care of, it will take much more from you, leaving you weakened and unable to recover as quickly as you normally would. That is the biggest threat as you enter the third trimester, and I cannot stress enough more the dangers involved in that time. You will become, in a way, as close to immortal as you ever will be again. I recommend not using the essence for anything unless absolutely necessary. Oh, I just remembered what happens later in the book. You will need every bit of it to ensure the babes are growing and healthy, and to keep yourself well enough to bring them into this realm. Injuries you would normally heal from could put you into stasis where your body would not be getting enough of what it needs. You would lose the babes if that happened. Which is weird. Well, I know stasis is like a deep sleep, but like if you think about like an umbilical cord, it's still, well, I guess she's not getting the nourishment she needs while she's in stasis. It's kind of like a pause. Never mind. I rescind.
Like, she's still breathing and stuff, but yeah, she's not intaking what she needs.
And so essentially it's not something to worry about right now, but third trimester, So then they're asking about feeding, and Kai's like, as long as you're receiving nourishment through your own feedings and eating as well, it is okay until you enter the third trimester. At that point, I recommend finding a donor, which they already have one. And then they ask about shifting, and Kai is impressed by her shifting form so soon. Yeah, she's kind of a badass. He says, I found nothing regarding that. That's information I hope to find at Mount Lotho, but I would not recommend doing it again, if possible, and absolutely not after the third trimester. And then Kai mentioned, since you were born mortal, I believe it would be wise if you gave birth as those who were once mortal do. Not all of them do this, but most choose to give birth in the mortal realm. It's a bit of a tradition that there's no real reason for that. It's kind of complicated. They believe that doing so pays respect to where they've come from by linking the next generation to the mortal realm. There's no scientific evidence explaining why those born mortal have easier deliveries in the mortal realm, but they do. There must be something to it. I think it's one of those, like, not wives' tales, but,
Yeah.
And then Kai's like, if you're injured at all, even if it's like a paper cut, please summon me because it's serious.
Okay, you're gonna get summoned a lot.
And Sarah's like, is there anything we should be keeping an eye on? And Kai's just like, it's normal to be anxious. Spotting is normal. He goes through all the normal things of pregnancy that I'm not gonna list. It's just And then they're freaking out, like, if something happens, like, does that mean the pregnancy is in jeopardy? And Kai's like, no, it doesn't mean the babes will be lost, but it could be cause for concern. And Sarah goes, could anything be done, or could I? And then her instinct cuts her off, telling her that even as the true primal of life, there wouldn't be anything she could do. The Vendentia also warned her that a primal intervention could incite the Fates' ire. Fuck the Fates. All I gotta say about that. But Kai reassures her that depending on the issue, like, there are treatments and stuff that they can look into. And Kai finally leaves, and Nexus is like, how did it go? And Sarah's like, Ash kept growling at him. It was annoying. And so they finish that conversation, and Sarah's like, anyway, we should probably get a move on. We have things to do today. One I'm not really looking forward to, but the other I cannot wait. And Ash didn't stand. When she did, he remained sitting, and I knew deep in my bones what was coming. And Sarah goes, Nectus, you should probably give us a couple of minutes. And he goes, I will wait for both of you downstairs. And Ash goes, there's no need to wait for us. Plans have changed. And Sarah's pissed the fuck off. And she's like, since when have they changed? And he said, since roughly 12 hours ago. And Sarah says, in other words, since you learned I was pregnant. And what exactly has changed? And Ash goes, everything. Dun dun dun. Annoying.
Oh, this is where it gets good.
Godspeed.
Nectus is a chicken shit, because from the moment this chapter starts. He's like, she told me I'm gonna go, so I'm gonna try to go. But yeah, she says she said his name, and out of the corner of her eye, she saw Nectus quietly creeping towards the doors. And she's saying, me being pregnant cannot change what we've planned, what we've already discussed with the others. Everything, everything is already in motion. Nor does it change the fact that Colas needs to be dealt with, and we have very limited time before he comes out of stasis, which could happen at any minute. And the last thing we need is Colas finding out. And she doesn't finish that thought because it's horrible. And Ash briefly turned to midnight skin because he's not liking that thought either. And he says that will never happen. But you're right, Colas still needs to be dealt with, and he will be. However, that doesn't and won't involve you. That was the wrong thing to say. And she said, excuse me? And he said, the last thing we need is you to be involved in your current condition. And she said, my condition?
He says, here's my foot. Let me stick it in my mouth. Multiple times.
He's trying to be protective, but oh boy, even Nectus goes, oh dear. Oh. And she's trying to be understanding, and she's like, I understand why you're feeling this way. And he's like, I'm glad we're on the same page. And she said, we are so not on the same page. And he's like, you're carrying our children, you're in a vulnerable state, I won't risk losing you or them. And she's like, I'm pregnant, Ash, not unable to defend myself or fight. And he's going back to what the healer said, and she's saying, perhaps you weren't listening. He, instead of growling at him, you could have heard him say that the concern is when I enter the third trimester. And he says, I heard him perfectly clear. Things are more dangerous for you in the third trimester. That does not mean things are safe for you now. And his head cuts towards Nectus, and he says, where are you going? And Nectus stopped with a hand on the doorknob, and he said, anywhere but here.
Smart Nectus. Get out of there, bud.
He said, Mom and Dad are fighting. Bye. He's like, before you do that, it'd be great if you tell my lovely, far too brave wife that I'm right. And she's like, he's not going to agree with you. And so they're now having a fight in front of Nectus about who Nectus is going to agree with and why. This poor man. And she's talking about kicking him off the bed, and it won't be a good time for him. And Nectus finally says, if I may speak. And Ash says yes, while Sarah says no. And he says, Ash, you are right. And Sarah said, you were my favorite Draken. And he said, I'm going to ignore that because you are also right. Ash didn't like that part. And he says, and you two need to figure out what that means. I'll be waiting downstairs. And he left. I love Nectus so much. And like in these interactions, Nectus is my favorite and always will be.
He says, let me stir the pot, but also I'm not going to be here when the pot overboils and everything goes to shit.
I'm just going to drop my two mementos in their Coke and leave and let them deal with the cleanup of the explosion. And he calls her Liesa, and she says, don't call me that. I don't like it right now. And she's trying to say, I get you don't want me being in danger or the babies. He's talking about how they're already pulling from her essence. And she's like, I can't deny that, but it doesn't change what needs to be done. And he's saying, we can ascend Ion, but just have her come here. The other gods can also be ascended here. And she's saying that she can't come here. Ion needs to be in her court with her people where she can be protected. And you have to be okay with that. And he's like, me being okay with that and you endangering yourself and our children is impossible. What then? You need to not stand in the way and deal with it. I told him, because the only thing that is truly a danger to me is Colas. And he's saying, I'll handle him. And she's saying, you can't handle him without me. And you know that. And And he's trying to tell her, I won't get myself killed, I'll be fine. And she says, I know you will do everything possible to ensure that doesn't happen, but I also know Kolos will take the first chance he gets to kill you, and he can do it. And then she feels fear at the thought of that, and she lets herself feel the fear so Ash can feel her fear to get her point across. And she says, the idea of you going after Kolos, going after any of the primals without me, is terrifying. And yes, we can worry about the risks I'm taking, but what about the risks you're taking? What do you think you being injured or worse would do to me, to the lives I carry inside me? I cannot do any of this without you.
Yeah.
And he's promising that she won't lose him. And she says, then to honor that, you know it must be done. I need to fight beside you, and I need you to support that because you will not stop me from doing so. I don't want us to fight. Neither of us needs that. We need to stand together against Kolos, not separate. I don't need you to want this. I need you to understand that this is how we ensure we have a future with our children.
Aww.
And he's saying, I thought you asking me to take you to your lake was the hardest thing that would ever be asked of me. You asking me to end your life was a nightmare made real. But this, and she said, this is just reality. I'm sorry. I wish we didn't even need to have this conversation. I wish things were different. I want things to be different for us. I want to spend being pregnant worrying about being a good mother or how painful birth will be. I don't want to spend it worrying about what new horrific act Kolos will commit, and that if I'm lucky, because if we're not, it's over. It's all over. I will lose control. I will take Kolos out or die trying. And he says, don't speak of dying. Don't. And she says, then don't make me fear that.
Retweet.
Right? And he's saying, do you know how hard it will be when all my instincts are going to want to keep you safe? But he says, but I do know how you're feeling. The only difference is that you're willing to face it head on, and I'm trying to do everything to prevent it. And so they kind of like come into this compromise. They're entering a stage of compromise. He says, for both of us to do what needs to be done, it's going to be just as hard on you as it is me. I have to allow you to fight, and you'll need to allow me to put myself in front of you. You're going to have to pull back and not rush into battles. And she says, I never rush into battles. And he says, Sarah, you're a terrible liar, and that has not changed.
Yeah, gotta side with Ash on that one. Sorry, girlfriend.
He says, I will do everything not to hold you back, but you also have to meet me halfway on this. It is the one time I will ask you to be less brave. And I can already feel how much you hate that. But if we're going to both do this, you need to promise you won't take any risks. And you also have to promise me you will step out the first moment you're even remotely injured, get to safety. You're not just doing that for me, you're doing it for our children. But you also need to promise me one more thing. You have to promise me that you won't hold back when it comes to fighting Kolos, finding anyone. And she's confused and she's like, didn't you just tell me to hold back? And he said, that's not what I'm talking about. I asked you not to rush into battles. What I'm talking about is not holding back when there is a battle.
Semantics.
And she's trying to say, like, that's never been a problem. And he said, before I would agree. But after what happened in Lysania, you made me swear to you I would put you in the ground if you lost control. You need to promise me that your fear of losing control will not stop you from using everything you have in you, that it won't stop you from being a little monstrous.
We love a monstrous, pregnant, badass.
Yeah, we do.
I don't know. I started saying that and I was like, ah.
So I like it. I like he's saying, be cautious, don't rush in, be willing to leave when you get hurt, but also don't let the fear of the things that happen stop you from giving it everything you got. And I like that he can kind of do that. So he says, do we have a deal? One you agree to and won't secretly be angry about? And she said, I agree as long as we both make another promise. And he says, I'm forever wary of making you promises now.
Honestly, mood.
And she said, we promise that our children will grow up with both of us by their sides, that we absolutely refuse to allow them to experience what we have. And he says, I swear to you, Mia Liesa, they will have two loving, living parents, and nothing, absolutely fucking nothing, will prevent us from ensuring that. And she thought about that and said, a tiny part of me feared a time would come when not even he could stop me. My hand went to my lower stomach as I focused on my breathing. If they were ever threatened or harmed, Ash wouldn't be able to stop me. He'd have to put me in the ground. Makes you think about the shit that happened to Malik.
Which we don't know about. Still. Really. She doesn't give birth in this book. Fun fact for everyone. Well, we get no context.
I was hoping in the epilogue there would be like a little thing about it, but we know what happens, but it's like, it was done well, and it was such a good book. But I was hoping for a little something, Jennifer, a little something. I waited 53 chapters for this.
Jennifer, give us a big donger. Give us a Kingdom of Ash book. Give all of the pages. Give 1,000 pages. Say less. I'll gladly take one for the team. I will read.
Yeah.
I will read.
I remember her saying like, "Oh, I'm like something about trying to make sure it's not as big as the last one was." I was like, "No, go bigger. That's fine. Just do it all." Like,
put it all in.
Let's not hold back now. While things are getting good. But they are now at the Thia Plains doing something that none of us are excited for. This is where they take care of the Keela and Ione situation. Ione? Okay. Somehow I was like, wait a minute, have I been saying that wrong? But they apologized for being late, and she was saying how she enjoyed her last minutes in one of her favorite spots and that she'll miss it. And that's kind of really depresso espresso. And Ash is like, you can sit it out, and Ione comes in saying, that's what I told her. None of us is eager for her to pass on. Apparently I haven't said it enough, because here we are. And Keela says, yes, here we are, both more than ready to begin the next chapter of our stories, but only one willing to say it. And Sarah thanks her for helping her, and she says, no need to thank me. I couldn't have been happier to fuck with Colas. And Keela says, Ione, and she says, sorry. I meant I was honored to fuck with Colas on your behalf. And Keela says, happier wasn't the word I had a problem with. And Sarah already knows she's gonna like her, and we already like her.
This is real tragedy.
True. And she says, I suppose I will graciously accept this unnecessary but understandable gratitude. So Ione is like all of us. We're just horrible at accepting thanks and compliments. These people in this book have a problem with that.
That's what makes it realistic.
And they ask her if being the primal is what she wants, and she says, want is a strange word. Feels kind of selfish to want this, but it is what I've been prepared for. And then Keela takes Sarah by the arm and says, come, walk outside with me, and they walk away from the others. And she said, there's something I wanted to tell you. I wasn't sure if I could or should the last time we spoke. And Sarah says, you know about my condition? And she says, if by condition you mean that you're with child, 2 of them? Yes, I know. Congratulations are in order. This is such a blessing. I didn't say anything before since I wasn't sure you were aware, but that's not what I wanted to discuss.
No, of course she knew. Everyone knew before her.
Of course she did. That's what she did.
Everyone knew before her.
And she says, sensing the souls of unborn babes is not always easy, and it varies from soul to soul. But with you were carrying Satoria's soul. That acted almost as a shield, and afterwards, well, there wasn't much time. And then they start discussing Satoria. She says, it is Satoria I wanted to speak with you about, her and the prophecy. It's something I didn't say when the 2 of you were here last. Something Ethos told me, and my impressions of what he planned. Why she didn't tell him this before, I don't know, but we're about to get into some nitty-gritty shit about Satoria and Ethos's plan. Ethos spent a long time trying to decipher the prophecy and its true meaning. He even managed to speak to Delphi. I imagine the god of divination didn't share that with you and Nyctos. He did not. When Ethos spoke with Delphi, because who just says everything that could be helpful? You know, we got to be mysterious and let it simmer for a while.
Nyctos really takes that into account for the next series and really just harnesses that.
He does. Oh, and Reaver knowing that she's a primal and just being like, I just thought you guys already knew. And it's like, honey, you could have said
He's
something.
striking her. He's striking her. Anyway.
When Ethos spoke with Delphi, it was when Eris Balfour, the last oracle, was still alive. I think that affects Ian. That's why Ian knew all these stories and stuff. He just had that
Yeah, they allude to
oracliness.
that in the From Blood and Ash. But I don't
Yeah,
remember which book. But they did allude to it in one of the books.
Yeah, somewhere. I don't know exactly what Etris, not Eris, Etris or Delphi said to Ethos, but whatever was shared led Ethos to place the embers and Satoria's soul into your bloodline. That was no random chance of opportunity.
Shocker. We already knew this wasn't random.
She says, but Roderick Muriel summoned him, and she says, and Ethos was waiting for that moment. He knew Roderick would do so. You see, the prophecy had begun to fulfill itself before Satoria was born. It started with the Silver Knight. She was, as one would say, promised by the fates, just like you. It's just this bloodline, man. And so she says, so you're basically saying that Etris, or possibly even Delphi, told Ethos Roderick would summon him. It makes sense. The prophecy spoke of the desperation of the Golden Crowns, but this really doesn't tell us anything new. And she says, no, but it does remind us how much needed to happen for us to be right here, right now. What Ethos did was never just about stopping his brothers. Or his brother, yes. The prophecy spoke of Colas, but also of greater dangers. And Ethos learned, and what Ethos learned convinced him of who that primal would be. And she says, do I want to know? And she says, Satoria. And she's like, what? How could that be? And she, I don't understand. And she says, neither do I. Ethos never said, but I do know that is why he put her soul in your bloodline. Ethos was trying to circumvent the prophecy, Sarah. He hoped she would be reborn with the embers of life in her. Gosh dang it. Allowing her to stop Colas and make way for Nyktos to rise as the true primal of death. It would also have prevented her from rising as the primal of life and death, since he believed the prophecy references his son and Satoria coming together in love. Well, that was a plan, I guess. This is why he asked for the firstborn daughter of the Mariel bloodline. And if he was right, then in his mind there would be no threat to Satoria rising as the primal of blood and bone. To do so, it would have required her to kill Nyktos, something she could not do if she loved him. I'm trying to think why she would have to kill Nyktos to rise as the...
Because he's the true primal of death.
Interesting. That's interesting. That they thought that's how.
Or the true primal... Hold on. He is the true primal of life. She could... Oh, hold on. I just broke my own brain.
Because he wanted Nyktos to rise as the true primal of death, thinking that would stop her from being
Yeah. And she wouldn't kill the true primal of death. Yeah. Okay, I was still right. My brain broke a little bit. Yeah.
And we all know that didn't work. She's not Satoria. And she's like, correct. His plan worked except for that. And his plan should have worked completely. My involvement ensured that, but something went impossibly wrong. And for that to have happened, there can only be one reason. What was that reason?
Fates.
The fucking fates. They prevented Satoria from being reborn in her bloodline. Why would they do that, though? Who knows? She said, they cannot want the ancients to awaken, and Keela said, you must remember that the prophecies are dreams of the ancients, and you also know what that means. Dreamt by the ancients means dreamt by the fates. And that means most of the fates expect all that is said in the prophecy to happen. I don't know why they would want that, but their involvement ensured it's still possible, and we don't understand why. She says it's imperative you follow through with what you plan regarding Satoria. She needs to be freed as soon as it's safe to do so. And they said, what will stop the fates from intervening? Which we all know they do. Because what is shown in the prophecy happens in the future. That is what Penelope said. If Satoria were reborn now, she would live and die as immortal long before what Penelope saw in the future could happen. Why would the ancients dream of a mortal becoming such a powerful being? It's not because of what Colas did to her. That dream happened long before that. And this we don't know, and Ethos knew, and if Ethos knew, he never said. And then Sarah asks, do you believe that the future is already written, that the threads that last cannot be unbroken? And she's saying, I don't know. I hope to know the answers once I reach Arcadia.
Which is not helpful because, well, how are you going to
I
tell her?
can't help them, yeah. She's basically saying, I'll find out the answers, hopefully, but y'all will still be stuck. So good luck. And then she says it's time. She's eager to get to Arcadia, man. But it is time for them to take Keela out of the picture so Ione can take over. So she took what she learned from Keela and kind of just pushed it to the back of her mind for the moment. And she's hoping that as long as they don't fail, she wouldn't have to burden Ash with this. Ione swears her allegiance to them. She drinks from Ione's wrist and ascends her. And Ash is being growly at the sight of her, having to bite her skin to let her drink from her. Ash. And then she drinks from Keela. And she says, when I felt Keela's last sluggish heartbeat, I lifted my head. Breathing was shallow as she stared at the sky of her court. Not once since we'd begun had she taken her gaze from it. I still held onto her hand as I felt the warmth leave her. Thank you, I said. I wasn't sure if I was thanking her for the sacrifice or for what she'd warned me about, maybe both. And Ash kneels down and puts his hands over theirs and says, may the next journey bring you peace. And then her chest rose once more and did not fall. And then Sarah's chest flared with heat. And it says it started with one below her left eye, then 2 on her chin, 10 along the throat, a dozen appeared on her forearm. They were like freckled stars, starting out as tiny pinpricks of light until ether seeped from her pores. The shimmery, silvery white wave of light swept over her entire body, pulsing with a blinding intensity that forced both Ash and me to stand and move back. Strands of ether unfurled, weaving delicate ribbons that stretched with an ethereal glow. I turned to where Ione sat, tears glimmering on her cheeks as she rose and stepped forward. Tendrils of ether illuminated the space between Keela and Ione as I stepped back into Ash's arms, resting my cheek against his chest as the primal energy threaded itself with Ione, and I felt the oath Ione had made lodge itself deeply within my chest. And a loud clap of energy released. The radiant glow where Keela lay was gone, and so was the primal.
That's wild. That's how you make an exit.
Right? Okay, so chapter 55.
We're almost there.
We're almost there, guys. We're doing it. So, there we go. That was all done, and Keela's gone, and then Sarah feels something inside her, and she realizes it's Colas, and she says it's not as strong as before, but she thinks he's waking up. Honestly, the man can keep sleeping. We don't need him here.
True.
And they're thinking we must hurry as they go on to their next mission. And don't laugh at me. And they end up shadow stepping to Callista Isles. Callista, I don't know.
Callista in my head.
Callista, sure. To pay a certain bitch a visit.
I don't like bitches.
So Sarah's looking around and she sees red and white wildflowers bloomed along the knee-high grass. Heavy curtains of moss hung from tree branches that stretched like intertwined arms over wide pathways. Ivy covered the trunks of trees and spread along the walkway, cracking the stone beneath our booted feet and smothering the wall in the distance, revealing only glimpses of the dark red stone on the rise. There was a surprising beauty to the untamed courtyard, and I couldn't help but wonder if Festus had intended for her land to remain like this, or if it had become like this due to neglect.
She a bitch, it's fine.
Okay, so the guards come running out and start rushing forward, and Nectus calls them idiots, because they are.
True.
And then Nectus ends up shifting to a Draken. It says his head snapped out, massive jaws opening. He caught the closest guard around the chest his sharp teeth piercing armor and bones as he shook his head, tearing the guard in two. Just like
Hot.
imagine a dog with its new favorite toy, just like shaking it really hard.
That was kind of disrespectful of Nectus right there. I think you just disrespected Nectus, low key, but that's
Because
okay.
it called him a dog.
Yeah. I see the visual we were going for, but
You just gotta imagine it as a dragon. Look, I don't see much dragons, so the most I got is the female from Shrek. Okay, the female dragon from Shrek. Like, and that's a weird
she
image for
ate Lord
Nectus.
Farquaad. But she ate Lord Farquaad, and
That's
she
true.
made it.
That's
She
true.
went. It was like a double. It was a double back. Oh my god, sorry, side notes now that we're on this. There used to be a Shrek ride or a Shrek attraction at Universal, and it's so funny, like the pre-show they would replay that one part, like it's the three pigs and Pinocchio, and they're doing the pre-show and they're all talking because they're all captured, and so they go mirror mirror on the wall because the mirror is also captured, and they're just like, can we like watch like that scene over and over? They play it like 3 times in a row. It's really funny. Well,
I
R.I.P. to the
love that.
Shrek ride. It's not a thing anymore, but you know, it's a good thought.
Oh, that's funny. So yeah, he tears the guard in two, and Sarah says, "Was that necessary?" And he says, "No, but it was fun." And I said, "That's where Reaver learned it from." And then I had this like thought about Reaver and I was like, we talk about Reaver and Jadis being together, but I wonder if that would be the case because I feel like they might have more of a brother-sister relationship. So
that last chapter. Were you here? Were you present? I said that last chapter.
I heard you say that.
Yeah.
But I knew I had a note on it, so I was like, I'll just wait till my note.
I literally think he would burn the realms for her, but like as a brother.
As a brother, yeah.
Oh, but I hope Reaver does find love. He deserves love. What if he brings in the next generation of Draken? I don't know who he would have babies
Hopefully
with,
not Aurelia.
but like that would be awkward as hell. Ain't no way,
but
bro.
I was thinking, what if Jadis and Kieran got together? Then you could have your Drakenwoven.
There are so many problems with your statement you just made. Let me lay out at least 2 of them. Number 1. I just came out with a really tragic, I forget which Draken dies in the last book. Not in this book, in the last From Blood and Ash book. But there was a female that died. What if Reaver was really vibing on that female and now heart shattered? I can't think of any other female other than Aurelia, but that's disgusting. Absolutely not.
It wouldn't be Aurelia.
Number two, how are you going to auction off Kieran when we're still trying for this throuple situation? Like,
listen,
how would you do that?
I'm all for the throuple, but there's nothing. No one's saying they can't bring in a fourth. Okay. I don't know. Listen, some people want Reaver and Kieran together, so. Oh.
So many comments. I'm going to reserve them. Continue.
I am still shooting for the throuple. The throuple is still my end game, so.
Why can't Reaver... Hold on a second. Why can't Reaver join Delano and Perry? Why does Reaver have to be involved?
I think it's just their banter that people automatically give it sexual tension instead of let it just be banter. Like, I was thinking Delano and Reaver though, and Perry.
Anyway, continue with your.
Anyway, now that we've gone from Shrek to thruples and fourthsomes and all this thing, they're fighting the guards. The guards are being stupid. Nectus is having his fun. And then as they get deeper into the palace, she sees some artwork that Vessus has. And they were paintings of Vessus. Naked Vessus. And she said, "What the fuck?" And Ash says, "I'm guessing you're seeing her artwork. Interesting choice, eh?" He went Canadian. And I gotta say, like, Vessus, she's confident in herself. Like, she knows she looks good. She just wanted that on display. Anyways, I'm done. And that felt wrong to defend that. Anyways, she's going up the stairs. Guards are coming out. She's like, "I wouldn't run that way if I were you," and they didn't. Nectus's wings swept overhead as he swung it around, slamming his tail into the guards. Several of them hit the trees with bone-sickening crunches. A few went through the trees. Nectus is living his best life right now.
He really is, honestly.
But there's lots of fighting going on. And Sarah's kind of getting sick of having to fight all these people and not know where Vestas is. And she's like, Ash is saying she could be anywhere. And she's like, we don't have time to search the whole damn palace. So she closed her eyes for a fraction of a heartbeat and wondered where Vestas was. And the Vedentia told her, our room of mirror and glass. And Ash said her bedchamber. And she said, I'm going to save my rage over you knowing what her bedchamber looks like so I can take it out on her. And, I
Smart move.
I had a thought. Like, the
No.
Vedentia doesn't tell her stuff if it relates to her personally, what she's doing. And this relates to her personally and what she's doing. And so I'm really shocked it told her where Vestas was. Like, can she just know where any primal is when she wants to? Is that just a thing that the true primal of life can do?
What if she... let me think this process through. What if it's like a... No, ain't no way. Ain't no way. In my head, I was like, what if, like, you know how Poppy tries to read people and, like, with Theron, it was, like, not a good move, like, he blocks her or whatever?
Right.
What if Vestas just gave no fucks and was just like, alright, she can know where I am. I'm in the nude. Get wrecked, nerd.
No, she's not in the nude. Her pictures were in the nude. That would have been funny if she was in the nude for this.
That would be, like, Jeff Goldbluming it. That would be so funny.
But no, and then I was like, man, that sounds like personal gain. And then I thought of Charmed and how they couldn't use their powers for personal gain.
You're welcome.
And so I was like, oh, there's another reference to Charmed.
Just saying. Jennifer, have you ever seen Charmed? I'm gonna actually ask that in the Facebook group.
Jennifer, which one's your favorite sister? That's what I want to know. Yeah.
Anyway,
so yeah,
continue.
So that's what I thought of. That was my thought while doing the notes last night. So they know she's in her bedchamber, and he's trying to defend himself for knowing where it is, and she's like, you don't need to defend yourself, I'm just being irrationally jealous. And there's more guards, and Ash is saying, y'all have a choice to make: step aside and live, or refuse and die for the primal who is too cowardly to show her face. And Sarah says, why did I just find that so incredibly hot? And he says, naughty Liesa. But the guards didn't answer, and he says, so be it, and then starts attacking them. And she's having a hard time holding back and not getting in on the fight, but she knows that hand-to-hand combat is kind of one of the riskiest things she could be doing right now. And suddenly the palace is shaking because Nectus is fighting with another dragon. They're shaking things up. And Ash yells, careful. And Drake and blood is spraying in every direction. She ended up shadow stepping back, knocking into Ash. A few of the drops got on her calves and her boots, and she could feel the blood burning her skin. And it's fun times with drakens fighting above you. And it says, the golden draken crashed through the ceiling several feet away, sending large chunks of stone flying. Ash swore, darting to the side with Mina's arms, and not a moment too soon, a chunk of red stone, nearly the size of a draken's head, which means it's large as fuck, slammed into the wall behind where he had just been standing. My chin jerked up to see Nectus veering back up into the air as another draken with honey brown scales erupted from the clouds. I looked down to see a nude male lying in the rubble, his body bloody and broken. I knew he was dead. I felt at the moment the blood hit the air. I still winced, and she said, what a waste. And then who shows up but the bitch in question herself at the end of the hall with at least a dozen guards. What did she do?
Has the audacity to smile.
She released a stream of ether. I was trying to remember what it was she did exactly, but she released a stream of ether. Ash got in front of her, taking the blow, and he ended up staggering, going down to a knee, which is shocking for Ash to stagger. And Vestas was laughing, and that was kind of a that was a bad idea, because now Sarah is pissed. It said, a terrible sound came from me, a scream of rage as I pushed off the pillar. I flew past Ash as he rocked back. I knew he would be okay, but part of my brain had simply clicked off. Vestas had hurt Ash, and that would be the last fucking time she did. And then so she's going after her, going all primal, gold and silver ether, powered down my right
Hot.
arm, streaking out and slamming into the stunned guard, who had just taken out one of his comrades. I stopped at the female guard. Her skin was doing something strange, flaking off. So it makes me
Hot.
think, well, I know her skin flaking though, like was she ascended? Did she have ascended at her disposal? That's what I don't know.
Oh,
That's
all I think when you say skin flaking off is when
you
I
can make a
think I'm
Voldemort
not.
reference.
I was going to.
As soon as you said that, I was like, she's gonna go Harry Potter and Voldemort, isn't she?
Y'all know
Ugh.
what I'm gonna say, so
I
just
love that we were on that same wavelength though.
just a slow
Um,
little through the wind. Anyway.
yep. But Vestas ends up kind of leaving the guards to fight for her. And she says, I'm going to destroy Vestas. Each word hissed with heat and vengeance. I will lay waste to every guard.
Sorry, I skipped ahead and I read something I highlighted.
Oh, jeez. I will bring what remains of her drink into the ground. I will lay waste to her courts. And then the guard is like, ugh! But Ash gets to her and says, breathe through the anger. And then she realizes she's looking down at him, and he's tall as fuck. And it says, you're levitating again. And you're burning up as bright as the sun. It's fucking making my dick hard. Love him.
Yeah.
And he said, and you're also close to shifting. You cannot shift, Liesa. Our girl. That's so funny.
Dumbass.
These men and the inappropriate boners they have, man. What can I say?
So funny.
And then that's when she realized she'd been close to shifting and close to going like full ragey where he'd have to put her down. She says, I will not lay waste to her court. Kill her, yes, I was going to do that for sure. And they reassure each other that she's fine. And then they start fighting together to get through the guards. They were two halves of a single deadly entity. Left, he called out, and I trusted the
like me and
instruction.
you.
We don't expect us to fight like this, though. We'd say left, and we'd be like, huh, are you sure? And then the person on the left would get us. Like, it would be bad.
Yeah.
Maybe in Valorant, we can do that, but like,
oh. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, he said left. She trusted it. Just in time to parry a wild swing aimed at her head. With a twist and a thrust. I reminded myself that hesitation was a luxury I could not afford. They finally get to her doors. She blows them off their hinges. Vestas is in there in her diamond dress, and the door smacked into her, and Ash laughed. And she's like, I thought you were trying to be a better person. And Sarah said, I was, as in the past tense. And she says, or more like you were never better. And she says, yeah, maybe you're right. And she didn't expect that. And she said, I threw her to the side. Vesta screamed as strands of her hair snapped. She crashed into the mirror, shattering them. And she says, do you let her fight your battles now, Ash? And he said, only run. I'd rather cut my arms off than have my skin touch yours. And she was gonna say something, and she gets fucked up again by Sarah. And Sarah grabs her hair and is pulling her and kicking her into the mirrors. And she says, I'm getting really tired of you touching my hair. You've made whatever point you're trying to make. Congratulations. You've killed some guards in Draken and destroyed my palace. You're such a big, bad primal now. And that's when they realize she thinks that she's just here to make a statement. And she's like, what do you think we'll do after we've made it? And she says, leave and gloat while I crawl back to Colas to tell him how powerful you are. Honestly, I don't give a fuck. You won't beat loyalty into me. And Sarah starts laughing, and she's like, what's so funny, Sarah? And she says, I expected you to run. I was surprised you didn't. I thought you were smarter than this. And Ash says, she's not. And Ash says she does think you're better than her, better than Colas and his loyalist, and she's correct, but she came to the wrong conclusion on what that means for her. And it says, the way she went completely still beneath me said we were both correct. Her next words further confirmed it. You're not going to kill me, she said, lips twisted in a smug smile. You've had your chance before and you didn't, and you won't after what happened to Empress. You haven't ascended anyone to take my place. I would have felt it. I know you won't allow what happened after Empress to repeat. And she said, I didn't ascend another to take your place because I will. I'm going to
Yeah,
kill you,
that's right.
Vessus. And she's like,
Pop off.
no, you wouldn't. She won't.
Joke's
And Ash
on
says,
you.
Ash says she is. Clearly you have no idea who you're speaking to. He's the inherently just and fair one. I'm the one who has to work at it. And they say, work at it? And she says, yes, but you're not worth the effort. There is no room for forgiveness and fairness. I'm the reaction to your past actions. I'm the consequence. And she says, you should be grateful, Vessus. A part of me wanted to make your death last for years, for the length of the deal you made with my husband. I wanted you to feel every painful, choking second of desperation and humiliation. I wanted to witness your pleas turn to silent screams of hopelessness and gods. That does sound like a good idea. And then Ash kind of reins her back in. And she says, but I'm not that cruel. That's the difference between you and me. I don't want to find pleasure in another's suffering. Okay, I lied. I do find a little bit of pleasure in your suffering. But I will not extend it because, for whatever fucked up reason, you did try to warn us. For that, I will not draw this out. I will take your court, Vessus, and I will make sure all knowledge and memory of you is stripped away. No
Which is
generation.
true.
No generation going forward will know of you. You will not be forgotten, Vessus. You will be unknown. You will die today. And she jerks her head back and sinks her fangs into her throat. And she tried to like break free, but Ash grabbed her and held her arms down. And she said, I lifted my head and, guided by instinct, placed my hand on her chest. Strangely, I didn't look her in the eyes. I didn't want to, as I willed the essence from her body. Her back bowed, lifting clear off the floor. This is giving Katie Bell in Harry Potter touching the necklace.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I drew my hand back. Thin filaments of ether stretched from her chest to my palm. The essence soaked through my flesh, causing my breath to catch. Her ether pulsed and flowed, making light dance across the broken mirrors and walls. It poured out of her, and the floor began to tremble, the walls shuddering. And Ash tries to tell her to look away and to look at him. And she thinks I shook my head, holding Vessus' stare as the last of her essence left her body and entered mine. As the ether receded from her eyes and veins, I didn't know why I said what I did next. Maybe it was because I knew what Vessus had gone through. At one point she had been different, but had become something cruel and sick due to Colus's actions and influence. Perhaps she even willingly became what she was, but she wasn't always like this. Maybe I truly had no idea why I said what I did. I wish it could have been different for you, I said, my voice hoarse as the light flickered from her eyes. I'm sorry it wasn't.
Look, and that's the difference between her and a monster. She
Right?
low-key feels bad.
But low-key is really glad that she's gone. Well, okay, not low-key, but...
I think it's funny because in From Blood and Ash, there's the wait.
Paris is the one that they
prosperity
have
though. Yeah.
For rights and prosperity, yeah. So it's like, do they actually find? No, that's Vessus's court. Yeah, that's who Paris is under.
There's a. We don't even get that context yet.
So we don't know.
Oh my god, we better get
we
this
don't know
context.
if that's actually a primal they gave the court to, or if that's just a name,
like a random,
like a cover up for not someone being there. Yeah.
Yeah. I just put that together because I was like, wait, we don't know who Vessus is, but we do have somebody who's over her court.
Yeah, I thought about that the other night because in Jennifer's Facebook page, someone had shared a screenshot that I had shared and tagged me and give me the credit, and it was that, and I read it, and I was like, Paris, and then I read the court, and I was like, wait a minute, because I had just done I was doing the notes too, and I was like, that's Vessus's court. So who is he? Is he an actual person? Like, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to find out.
Maybe it's a kid. Maybe it's a kid of somebody.
Maybe. I don't know.
Wild. Couldn't tell you. Wild. I just put that together.
Maybe it's Layla and Addis's
That's
kid.
what I was thinking. That's what I was low-key thinking, but I didn't want to put that in the universe because we're really just putting a lot of pressure on these people right now. Anyway,
I still think Willa is descended. Sorry, I'm just thinking about all these kids now. I think Willa is descended from Holland and Penelope. If not directly their kid, then descended from them. That's my
sure,
thought. Shut up.
sure. Sure.
Anyways,
Sipping and bitching on everything. When you're listening to this, we are already back from our trip and depressed. Yes, indeed.
but right now
But
we are
catch up
happy.
in bliss.
And
Yeah. We're in bliss. Ignorance is bliss. And we are. Social media will have a bunch of like IRL-y stuff. So if you're interested in getting to know the humans behind the voices and or faces that you see, maybe check it out. Maybe. Just maybe.
If you hate us, that's okay too. Like, we understand.
Also true. We have 13, 14, like 3 more episodes left, and then we're done. Go us. We done did it. If you have any suggestions on what you'd like us to read next, let us know. If not, we have some ideas, but, we haven't committed to anything. I think
No, we
after
have
those
not.
3 episodes, though, we're going to take a brief hiatus, and then maybe we'll do, like, a standalone as a one-off episode.
Yeah.
What's
or
it
we'll
like
do
it being, like, 1 episode for 1 book? That's wild.
That'd be crazy, yeah.
Wow.
We're gonna need the break after recording this whole book, though.
Correct. So, that's what we're gonna do. But thanks for coming along this journey with us, and we'll catch you later, bitches. Bye!
Bye!